Debra and my co-host Willie, and it's that time again. It's time for Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, episode number 22. This is a podcast about my crafting. I like to do all the crafts. As you can see from the chaos of the craft room behind me, I like to quilt, I like to sew, I crochet, I knit, I make baskets, I make jewelry. Pretty much anything I can get my hands on, I'm willing to try. Also, I am a professor of physics and astronomy at a local university, and we just started back today on our full-time fall schedule. So if I look a little tired, it's because I'm getting back in the swing of things. I like to promote women in STEM, and also I do volunteer planetarium shows for school groups and public groups. And I'm also interested in stars and stellar formation and stellar lifespans. And last but not least, I live here in the Arkansas Ozarks on my family farm of 170 acres. I'm the third generation of my family to have a farm on this particular piece of land that has owned it. But prior to that, my family were tenant farmers on this same piece of property for I don't know how many generations prior to that. I raise grass-fed beef cattle. I also raise horses and chickens and rabbits and geese. And I'm also haven to a rescue herd of donkeys and miniature horses and a miniature mule named Pumpkin who thinks she rules the roost. And as my little co-host here will tell you, I'm also fur kid mom to 14 dogs, 6 indoor cats, and an undetermined number of outside barn cats, which I'm trying to get tamed so I can take them and have them spayed and neutered. So if that sounds interesting to you, I invite you to come along as we have another visit this week on Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, episode number 22. Okay, if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Instagram and on Ravelry as Doc Firewoman. There's also a Ravelry group for the podcast where you can find out about make-alongs and giveaways. And we're going to be talking about a new make-along that's going to start September 1st, which is coming up quicker than you think. And also, if you like farm stuff, if you would like to find my farm Facebook page, it's Buckthorn Farms, which is the same name as this YouTube channel name on Facebook. And you can also email me at debra@buckthornfarms.com, and I'll put all that information in the down bar below the video. We do have a new make-along starting. It's called Spread the Warmth. And it's going to be starting September 1st, and the idea is to make, again, things for charity. It can be anything, really, but particularly I want to focus on the fact that winter is coming, and there may be people or animals who need a little extra warmth this winter. They either need literally something to keep them warm, like a hat or a blanket, or they may just need something to comfort them and give them warmth that way. So you can make it pretty broad. Again, I'm just do something good, y'all. That's the main thing that I want us to do. So there is a chatter and planning thread open right now in the Ravelry group, and on September 1st I will open an FO thread, and that will run through December the 15th. Don't know what the prizes are going to be yet, but I will come up with something. So, but anyway, so I like to try to help out and make the world a better place. So I'm going to kind of focus most of my make-alongs, I think, on that. So if that sounds interesting to you, go check it out on our Ravelry group and get involved. I'd love to have y'all. Also, too, if you could like and subscribe to this, like this video and subscribe to my channel, I sure would appreciate it. Hopefully I'm bringing you something of value that you enjoy listening to. I've enjoyed doing the Vlogust. If you haven't caught that, I've been doing a vlog every day for the month of August. It's mostly farm related. There's very little crafting in it, but there is some. And if you want to see what I do day in and day out on the farm, of course today was all about going back to work. So anyway, you can check that out, and I would encourage you to check that out if you want. And I appreciate everybody's feedback. It makes me feel good to know that some of y'all are getting something out of watching this stuff every week. Anyway, so we're going to move on now to finished objects. Okay, I have a couple of finished objects to show you this week. My first yarny finished object is the Haylie's Hug Cowl. It's a pattern by my friend Christine Chen, and she is known as Needle to Needle on Ravelry, and she's also known as Bay Area Knitter. It is a pay-for pattern on Ravelry, and the proceeds from the pattern go to benefit a child cancer foundation, because Haylie was one of her friends and neighbors who unfortunately passed away from an aggressive childhood cancer when she was much too young. And so Christine made this cowl sort of in her memory. It's a very quick knit. It's very easy. It's a DK weight cowl. Okay. So it's a good, what I call good meeting knitting. Okay. You can see there. Okay. Good meeting knitting. It's a very quick, like I said, knit up. And it's just knit in the round. And this is made with Honeybee Knits DK. And this was her charity yarn for her friend who died of esophageal cancer. So it kind of goes with the theme of the cowl. I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. Excuse me. Okay. And I was carrying that around in my fat bottom bags, kitty cat smooth bag that I picked up at my local yarn shop, Knit Two Together. So this is my first finished object. I highly recommend Christine's patterns. I think she designs for Lion Brand yarns. So I highly recommend you go check out her pattern page. She is Needle to Needle on Ravelry. So anyway, so that is my first finished object. Okay, my next finished object is my Kelvin Monster Pouch. This is by One Dog Wolf, Chinwei Rank. I'm probably saying that wrong. But she is One Dog Wolf on Instagram and on Ravelry. This is a very quick little crocheted free pattern off of her blog. You can get to it through Ravelry. I do have a project page for this if you want to look it up. It's a very simple little construction, but you do learn to put a zipper in, because his little mouth is a zipper. And so you buy a little zipper. Now she has pictured a metal toothed zipper, but what I ended up buying was one of these plastic toothed zippers, just because I liked how it looked. I liked the purple and gold together. But it's very simple. He's just got a solid back, and then you do the shaping down here for his little feet. Okay, on the front, it's solid up to here, and then you go and do the opening for his mouth. Okay, you come back and you pick up and do for his little top knot there, and then you make his little arms. Okay, and so yeah, I'm going to put a handle on it, I think, so I can carry it around maybe, but you could probably carry him as his little top knot, although that's not very polite, is it? So this is a very cute little knit. This is just some acrylic Red Heart yarn that I had left over from, I think, one of my service learning activities. I think we were doing constellation sewing cards, and I had this left over. So, but I thought it turned out really cute. I think it's adorable. And yes, it's for me, because I like things like that. Okay, my next finished object, I finished the little Halloween vest, which is right here. I finished this yesterday. If you watch my vlog, now I have not added the buttons yet. I have some Halloween buttons I'm probably going to add to sort of, I started to say garnish that, but I mean embellish it. Okay, but I did finish the little Halloween vest. Okay, so it is, I made it with the side extenders and the shoulder extenders, because I like my vest to be a little bit oversized. Okay, so there it is. And then on the back it says trick or treat. Okay. So, yeah, I finished this, and it's got a really cute little lining. The lining that I used is some, well, I'll just take it off where you can see. The lining that I used is spider webs, and I tried to center the big spider web kind of in the center of the back. Okay, so I just thought that was really adorable. This was a vest that was in my mom's things, and I wanted to get it finished, and I'm going to put the embellishments on it so I can wear it for Halloween. But also, dun, 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 the county fair is coming up in like 2.5 weeks. Woo! So, I did my county fair entries for my livestock yesterday and started entering my home ec entries. So, got to finish up that. I'm going to have to kind of go through and see what I've got done. But anyway, so that's another finished object for this week. And then last but not least, on Saturday, I took a basket class from Sasha, and we did this little cute single wall Cherokee style. And the reason it's Cherokee style is it's a 6 over 6 in the center, and then you wrap the base 3 times. I don't know how well you can see that, but the base is wrapped 3 times to secure it, and that's what makes it Cherokee style. And then this is just single wall. We have done a double wall before where you come up and then you turn it down and you go down the outside, but this is just a little simple single wall basket, and I'm going to use it just kind of as a catch-all, I think. Although there is a group having a charity auction, I may donate it to that. We'll see. So those are my finished objects for this week. I've got a few works in progress I'd like to show you, so let's move on to that right now. Okay, on my works in progress, I have a few yarny ones. The first thing is I decided to go back to my solar system blanket. If you watched from sort of the beginning, you saw my solar system blanket, and add this. Now this is just the part of it, but if you're a sci-fi fan, this will look familiar to you. This is the top disc portion of the Starship Enterprise. Ooh, doo, 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 doo. Anyway, I'm a huge Star Trek The Original Series fan. I watched that with my eyes huge and wide as a child when it would come on it would always come on at 10:30 at night during the summer, and I got special permission to stay up and watch it every night on Channel 7 at 10:30, unless there was a darned old baseball game and it didn't play. But I loved it, and I had a journal that I wrote down what happened in the episodes, and I wrote short stories about it. And the other day I was in the storage building and found all my Star Trek books. I bought all of the novelizations of the series, so I was a major Star Trek kid. And I had kind of forgotten my love of it, and this past winter I started rewatching it on Netflix, and now as I'm an adult, I really, really, really appreciate how progressive and open-minded and the wonderful social messages that show has. So I love this show, so I'm going to put the Starship Enterprise on my blanket. So there's that. Okay, I just got started. You make it in pieces and then you sew it onto the blanket. Okay, so then my next thing is I started the A Crocheting Hoovian. This is Laura Concert, A Crocheting Hoovian on Ravelry. She also has a podcast. It's really fun to watch. This is the Sunrise, Sunburn, Sunset Cowl. It's one of her patterns, okay, that she just published, and she's having a knit-along. And it's a participation knit-along, I think. That's what I'm counting on anyway. Because I just barely got started with this. I'm making this out of Expressions Fiber Arts. This is Lights Are Turned Way Down Low. Or Lights Are Turned Down Low, excuse me. And this was one of her special Christmas colorways last year. And the light is not really doing justice to how beautiful that blue is. But I've just barely got started. I think I'm on the 5th row of this. I was going to work on it today in a meeting, and I walked off in my office because I was talking to some of my coworkers, and I lost track of time, and I looked down and went, I gotta go, and the meeting was across campus, so I didn't even go back to my office and get it. But anyway, it's my meeting knitting. And that's in my Silver Shed USA Foxes bag. So that's another work in progress. That's going to be good meeting knitting because it's a very straightforward pattern. My other yarny work in progress that I will share this week are the Couch and Cracker socks by Julia from the Happy Knitting podcast. One of her first sock patterns, the Couch and Cracker socks, and this is all wadded up where I've had it shoved down in my project bag. Okay, the Couch and Cracker socks is a nice, straightforward knit pearl texture. And I am knitting this out of, well, first of all, it's in my Tesla Knits periodic table bag. Yay! Science, woo! It's knit out of a Craftsy Cloudborne fingering weight yarn called Josh's Cat. This is a very woolly yarn, but I'm finding it to be just a little bit splitty. I'm knitting it on Chalgoo needles. And I'm finding it to be just a little bit splitty, so it might do better with duller needles. I'm not having huge problems with it like I did that Peyton's Croy that time, but I am finding that it is a little bit splitty. I'm on my, I just finished my second pattern repeat on the foot. I'm doing them toe up, 2 at a time. Okay, and for some reason these are huge looking to me, so I'm hoping they block out and look a little better. But anyway, so you can kind of make out the texture there. Okay, and I am doing them toe up, 2 at a time. She has them written top down, but and they are an afterthought heel, so I am going to try the afterthought heel, which does look a little nerve-wracking to me, but I am going to try it because I would love to be able to figure it out, because I have some really pretty self-striping sock yarn that I would like to be able to use. So yeah. So, and that Progress Keeper is one that I got off of Amazon from Graphics Designs, and it's the Fox Fur Nebula. So we got a whole science theme going on here. Anyway, again, those are straightforward enough that those could also be meeting knitting if you can you kind of do have to keep up a little bit with where you are so the texture looks right. I have a couple of sewing works in progress. The first one is a bench pillow that I am clipping some trim onto. This is a bench pillow, long and skinny. You could also use it as a draft stopper as well, but I'm going to make the pillow. And I'm putting this trim on it. I've had this trim for about 500,000 years. And I thought, I'm going to put that trim on there. And then on the back part of the pillow, the little guys are facing backwards, which or you can see their backs, which I thought was really cute. So I'm going to make a bench pillow for Christmas. Just get that sewed up. That's going to take quite a bit of stuffing though. And the trick to that is going to be stuffing it so that it's nice and smooth and even and it's not all lumpy bumpy. So I'm going to have to work on that and make sure. Hang on, I dropped something over here and I don't want Willie to take advantage of that. All right, okay, there we go. Good boy. You want back up here? Come on. Well, come on. Come on. You don't? Okay. All right, the other work in progress that I have, I started some baby bibs, and these are, again, a printed panel. Where you sew bias tape on. I need to sew down this first layer of bias tape, but these are pre-quilted baby bibs. Okay, I have a whole bunch of them, and I have several people who have had babies recently, so I'm going to sew these up, but first they're going in the fair. So I've got this one, then I've got the little dog, and with the little round ones, what you do is you leave enough bias tape so that you can sew this down and make ties out of this. So I've got these two clipped down. I just have to sew on the bias tape. So I think that that's going to be all of my works in progress that I'm going to show you this week. And so now let's move on to future crafting. Okay, let me show you a couple of things on future crafting. The first one that I'm going to show you is sort of an acquisition also. If you've watched my Vlogist, you know that we recently had what was called Bargains Galore on 64, which is this huge yard sale that goes most of the way across the state on Highway 64. And I used to not be a huge fan of it, but if you get out early and you watch where you're crossing the road and stuff, it's actually pretty cool. And I ran onto a woman who was a quilter, and I found this kit, and it's for a quilted bag. Okay, it's Quilt Smart, and it's the midi bag, okay, and it's a quilted bag, and it's a kit. It's got the fabrics, and these are Moda fabrics in there, Basket of Flowers, Summer's Basket of Flowers, and so those are really good quality fabrics. And so I'm excited to try to make this bag. I think it'll be really pretty. I like the style of it. I think it would be a great bag to carry around your other project bags in, okay? Or maybe take to East Texas Fiber Festival when I go to that in November. Then another thing that I found, and this was something that my mom had ordered for me and I had kind of forgotten about it. This was from that Crafter's Choice Club, the Book of the Month Club. There are 3 of these moon-shaped boxes. They nest inside. And what they did was they sent you the patterns to transfer. You have to get your own graphite paper, but they sent you the patterns to transfer the different designs on there. So, let me turn them up that way where you can see them. Okay? And of course, I love the Halloween. That's why my mom got them for me. So I'm going to have to paint those. I haven't done any painting in a really long time, so I'll have to check out the quality of my paints. But they send you the designs, and then you're supposed to put like tracing paper underneath there and trace over it with something like a pen, a ballpoint pen or something, and then paint those. So I thought that would be kind of cool. There's no way I'll get them done in time for the fair, but I might get them done in time for Halloween. So I want to get them done because my mama bought them for me. And she bought them, I think, in like 1995 or 96. And I've carried them around from here to Oklahoma and back to here. So I want to get those made up. Kind of share in her, you know, share something with her again. My other work in progress, hold on, let me go grab it. Okay, I mentioned a couple of times ago that I was going to do the Rough MKAL. It starts September the 3rd, and it calls for 2 colors of fingering weight yarn, 390 yards. So I had put these aside thinking I might make a Tracy out of them, but I think I'm going to use them for this instead. Okay, so this one is Expressions Fiber Arts. This is her mulberry silk and merino 50-50 combo, and this was her her charity yarn, her wildlife yarn, and this was the snow leopard. And the reason I picked the color to go with it is every once in a while in here there'll be some purple shot through this, and this is Primrose Yarn Company. Okay, and this is a Sophia, so this is merino cashmere nylon, and this is in blackberry. So I thought those would look really pretty together. And then the cool thing is this shawl is beaded. Okay, so I'm going to learn to do some beading. I've got to buy my beads, but my coworker said today that he would pay me for the beef, so I can go ahead and get me some beads. It calls for 550 beads. Oh boy, okay, what have I done to myself? It's a triangle shaped shawl, but anyway, it's the In the Rough MKAL, and this is just the information sheet. It starts on September the 1st, and you get a clue. The clues are spaced out. It looks like the 3rd, the 21st, so they give you 18 days in between the first 2 clues, and then the 21st to the 5th. So what would that be? That would be 7, 28, 29, 30. So that'd be 9 plus 5. That's 14 days, so roughly 2 weeks. And then they give you 14 days between the last 2 clues. And then you finish it by November the 11th. So you have quite a big window to finish it. So I'm excited about that. I've never done any beading, but I want to. And I found another, Lord, I found another one that's starting in October by Boo Knits, and it's the Gothic Angel knit along, and it's a bead. All of her stuff is really super lacy and beaded and fluty, 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 fluty. And after I fussed and cussed about the Helen Stewart one, here I go doing I'm going to sign up to do a lace shawl, but I don't care. I think it'll be cool. So I'm anxious to get that one started. Yeah, and then my other pattern, and I showed the yarn for this. My friends had given me the blue Icelandic yarn. This is the hat pattern that I'm going to make out of it. The blue and the gold, I think, will make an awesome pattern, because you know me, I love the moon for a variety of reasons. So I'm excited to make that. So that's kind of what's on my radar for the next little while. I actually was doing pretty good about getting down the number of whips that I had, and then I started that cowl. I've still got my sheep love hat I need to work on, but I'll get to it eventually. So that's all of my craftiness. I've got some acquisitions to show, but that's all of my crafting content. So if that's the only thing you're here for, thanks for coming around, and I'll see you next time. And if not, we're going to move on to acquisitions. Okay, so the first acquisition is a prize that I won. I participated in the, come here Willie, the A Historian Knits podcast Finish It Make Along, and I won a prize. I finished my Raina shawl, and that won me a prize. And so she very kindly sent me my prize in the mail. The first thing I got was this beautiful skein of yarn. It's Lemonade Shop, okay? And the colorway is called Go Fly a Kite. So it's beautiful springtime. It's kind of blowing out there. Beautiful springtime colors, okay, which is perfect for flying kites. It is their superwash merino nylon 75/25 base, and it's 463 yards and 100 grams. So that'll be plenty to do anything with. I'll probably make a cowl or a shawl or something out of it to wear. I don't know when I'm going to wear all these shawls. But then she also sent me some little notions. There was a little measuring tape, and then this little macaroon has stitch markers in it. I got a little, because she's recently just moved to Colorado with her family. I got the little Colorado notions bag. So we'll stick those inside there. And then she sent me a sample of some wool wash, red currant and mandarin. And then she also sent me a separate present, which was really sweet. And I'm looking around for my dishcloth. I'll have to find it. I don't know where it is. She sent me a really cool dishcloth that I showed on my vlog and some soap. So that was more of a personal, sweet extra prize, which I was very touched by that. I thought that was very sweet for her to go to all that trouble. So that's my first acquisition. Now, I'm not going to bore y'all to death with what all I got on Bargains Galore on 64. If you want to go see what I got, I documented it pretty well in my vlogs. But I will show a couple of crafty things that I got. The first thing, besides the bag kit that I got from that same lady who was the quilter, was I got this little snowman kit, Jolly Bee Buttons, okay, which I thought was really cute. All right, so it's a very simple little snowman that you make up. Then I found these patterns, and they're called Garden Patch Cats, and there's all these different food shapes. So there's pumpkin cat, there's one that looks like a celery stalk, there's one that looks like a Walla Walla onion, there's one that looks like a kidney bean, and there's one that looks like a Bosc pear. And then I got to looking online, and there's many others of these, so I could actually order enough to make a fairly good sized quilt out of. They're applique, but got those for a really good individual price, and they've got they're complete. They haven't even been used, so all the pattern pieces are in there and they haven't even been used. So I thought that was cool. And then last but not least, I found this Baltimore album pattern that's Bunnies in the Moon. Is that not the coolest thing ever? It's called Baltimore Bunnies. It's by Bunny Hill Designs, and it's got, if you look in there, it's got every one of those Baltimore album block patterns is in there. Now that's a pretty major undertaking, but I think it'd be cool. Plus, the bias tape that you use on those, I've got one of those little clover irons that I showed in my vlogist. That's the little small individual iron where you can iron down that bias tape with it. So, yeah, so one of these days I'm going to rear up and make that. Now, the last acquisition that I'll share, just because I thought it was sweet, this is not crafting related, but I found this little book, Otis, and it's about a little tractor and his buddy, the calf, there. And the sweet thing about the tractor is the little tractor had a pretty good life until the farmer bought a bigger tractor, and little Otis kind of got left behind. He got moved out of his home. Okay, he got moved out of his home by the bigger tractor. He had to give up his spot in the shed and go live out in the rain, which made Otis very sad, and he got all grown up in the weeds, and that was very sad. Well, then one day, the little calf got stuck in the mud in the pond, and the big tractor, because it was so big and noisy, scared the little baby calf. So they had to go get Otis. And Otis, you know, even though he's a little bit worse for wear, was very happy to see his friend. And what he did was, he drove around and around and around, and his friend followed him. And the longer that the friend followed him, the closer to the outside edge he was able to get, because she never took her eyes off of her friend, and he was able to save the little baby calf. Is that not the sweetest little story? So, of course, then Otis was the hero of the day. You know, Otis was the hero there. And so the farmer decided that Otis's, I like what in the back page said, from that day on, the farmer discovered that when Otis's puttering purr beside the chicken coop, his chickens laid more eggs. At milking time, Otis's gentle chuff nearby, his cows produced more milk. On occasion, Otis even got to join the farmer and the big yellow tractor out in the field. But often, at the end of the day, Otis would just sit with his friend under the apple tree and watch the farm below. So bigger's not always better. I love that little story. Is that not the sweetest thing? I just thought that was super sweet. Anyway, so those are my acquisitions. So now we're going to come back and talk a little bit about science. Okay, so I like talking about different topics, sort of pop culture interest. And I remember reading about the Radioactive Boy Scout on maybe some YouTube channel. I don't even remember where I first heard about him, but what it is the story of a young man who was obsessed basically with radioactivity. And he was obsessed with nuclear power, and he was an Eagle Scout, and he was trying to get his Eagle Scout badge. Well, he was working on his nuclear engineering badge or his atomic energy badge or something, and he got the bright idea that he was going to try to build some type of reactor device in his mother's garden shed. And he doggone near did it. He wasn't that close, but he was close enough that his mother's shed basically got turned into a Superfund site. What he did was, it was actually he was fairly clever, even though what he did was pretty dangerous and very kind of shady, and in fact gave himself some pretty serious radiation burns doing it. What he did was, all smoke detectors have in them, or most smoke detectors have a little chip of Americium, which I think is element number 95. I could look on my periodic table bag and see, I guess. But I believe it's element number 95, Americium. And the reason that that's in there is Americium gives off alpha particles, which are big particles. They're basically the nucleus of a helium atom, but they're really energetic. And there's a detector in there. And as long as the detector gets alpha particles from the chip of Americium, everything's jolly. Now, alpha particles are really easy to stop. You can block alpha particles with a sheet of paper. What are y'all barking at? Hey! Okay. I don't know what they're barking about. But anyway, so what happens is when smoke goes up inside the smoke detector, it blocks the alpha particles. The detector goes, oh, I'm not getting enough, and it goes off. Well, he wrote a letter to a smoke detector company. Not sure which one it was, but there's not that many. And he said, I am a teacher. He made up some letterhead. I am a teacher. I need 1,500 smoke detectors to do an experiment in my class. Now, that should have set off alarms. No pun intended. Hang on just a second. Okay, they were wanting out, so I let them out. But anyway, so no pun intended, that should have set off some alarm bells that someone was wanting that many smoke detectors. But the other thing that he ran onto, and this was just dumb luck that this happened. Come here. Come on. Come here. Come on, Willie. All right. He was looking for some radium. Now, if you have an antique glow-in-the-dark clock or watch, chances are it's coated with radium paint. Because radium glows blue, and early in the 1900s, that was what was used to make watch dials and clock dials glow in the dark. And one day I'll talk about the Radium Girls story. I think I mentioned it when I was talking about the Poisoner's Handbook. But a lot of young women died as a result of painting those watch dials and those clock dials. But he went to an antique store looking for an antique glow-in-the-dark clock and found one. And he was going to scrape the paint off of the clock face. Well, when he opened up the back of the clock, he found a whole bottle of radium paint so that if you bought the clock and your dial stopped glowing, you could paint it and make it glow. So he kind of lucked out there. Well, what happened was he ended up building this thing, and mostly what he had done was just amass a big pile of radioactive stuff. and he was getting radiation burns from it because he wasn't wearing any protective equipment. And he started getting a little nervous, so one night at 2 a.m. he decided to pack all of this stuff up in a toolbox, and he sealed it up with duct tape, and he was trying to break into his mother's car so that he could get rid of it. And the cops got a phone call that someone was trying to steal a car, and they saw the toolbox and thought he had a bomb. Well, he kind of almost did, but not the kind they were thinking of. And so he ended up getting in trouble. I don't think he did any jail time, but he was actually sought out by the U.S. government to work for them because he was very, very smart, but clearly very troubled because he would not use any personal protective equipment. He went into the Navy. I believe he was dishonorably discharged from the Navy. Then he got into trouble for trying to steal smoke detectors out of apartment complexes like that were under construction. And he actually died maybe 2 or 3 years ago. He was only 37 years old. But the last police photo that they took of him, his face looked like he had really bad acne because that was all the radiation burns on his face. And he knew he was dying. But his last will said, and testament said, I do not want to be autopsied because I am not going to let radioactivity take the blame for my death. So he was obsessed, essentially, with radiation. Marie Curie was obsessed with radiation. Back then, they didn't fully understand all that it would do to your body. They knew that it was useful for treating cancer. And in fact, she helped develop some of the first X-ray machines and cancer treatment machines that were ever known. But she would carry a vial of radium around in her pocket. She would keep it by her bed. Her notes from her lab notebook are so radioactive you can't handle them. They have to be sealed. They have to be kept sealed. And if you want to see them, they don't let everybody see them, obviously, but that you have to wear protective equipment. But he was obsessed with radiation. And so I talked to my students about, that kind of drive is great, but when it comes with some issue where you can't see that you're killing yourself, that's a little bit of a problem. But most of my students have never heard of him, so I like to bring him up because I think his ambition was amazing, but he was a little bit, he was clearly very troubled. But anyway, so I always talk about those kind of things in my class. I talk about things like the Demon Core, which was a famous plutonium core that ended up actually directly causing the death of 2 scientists at Los Alamos. Then there was the Cecil Kelly, who worked at Los Alamos lab, that went in after Christmas when they'd been off for Christmas holidays. And it was in 1957. He went in and turned the stirrers on the plutonium separation tanks. And there was a film of plutonium that had formed on top of the tank. And when the stirrer turned on, it sucked it all down and it went into criticality. And it basically, somebody thought he'd been hit by lightning because there was a bright blue flash, which was the gamma ray radiation coming off of the critical mass of plutonium. He was blown across the room, and when they saw him, they said he looked like he was sunburned really bad. Well, he was cooked, is what it was. He died a few days later from massive internal organ failure. So I like my students to understand, you need to have a healthy respect for these things, and sometimes we don't fully understand the hazards that go with wonderful new discoveries until much, much later on. Now we would never dream of doing those kinds of things. So protect, the OSHA, there's a reason that OSHA and the EPA and all of these things exist, we're all about, let's keep some people safe, please. But anyway, so I do talk about those things in my class because you do need to have a healthy respect for radioactivity, but you don't need to be terrified of it. It's like electricity. You need to have a healthy respect for it, but as long as you're safe and sensible, there's no reason to be fearful of it. And the fact is, we're surrounded by radioactivity. There's background radiation all around us in the food we eat, in the air we breathe, in the buildings. It's all around us. So healthy respect, I think, is the word of the day. So I've revamped my class. I went in today and finished up the paperwork or mostly finished up the paperwork for my majors class. Tomorrow I'm going to go in and do the paperwork for my other class, for my algebra-based class. Got some ideas maybe for a new service learning project. I'm not going to deploy it until next spring, but I went to the Service Learning Community Partners Breakfast this morning and got some ideas for another service learning project, maybe to do with my algebra-based class, because it would be more relevant to what they do. So I was excited about that. I'm thinking about some projects to work on this year. It was good to see everybody back again, and good to visit with everybody. You know, if you watch today's vlog, you'll get to see a little bit of the campus, because I took a little time-lapse video as I was walking, because I had to walk across campus to go to that meeting today. And as with most college campuses, you might as well just walk, because by the time you try to drive and find a parking place, it's not worth the trouble. There's a reason I get there at 7 a.m. because I have my pick of parking places when I get there at 7 a.m. But anyway, so yeah, we're back to campus. So that's exciting stuff, and I'm ready to get started back doing planetarium shows and things. We're already starting to get booked up for those, so that's pretty exciting. So that's pretty much my science moment for today. I'll link some things about the Radioactive Boy Scout and about Marie Curie down below. Very fascinating, brilliant woman. Just also a little tinge of troubled there, you know, to be able to not regard her health any more than she did. But anyway, so I'm going to link those below, and now we're going to move on and talk about farm life. Okay, so I'm going to keep the farm life segment kind of short and sweet, because if you've been watching my vlogist videos, that's mostly what I've been talking about. I've been doing some preserving. I did some peach pie filling, and I did some soup and some jellies. I did some pluot jam and some peach jam this last couple of weeks, so that was good. I got an email today from the girl riding Bo. If you watched my vlogist episode, you saw some video of her working with Bo, and it was very exciting. I got a message from her today that he's coming along really well. She said he still has his moments, but he's mostly just stubborn. He wants to sometimes do things his way. Which, you know, I can handle stubborn. It's, you know, I'm going to go crazy and buck you off that I don't want. But she said, no, he's not like that. She has been loping him or cantering him, so I'm very excited about that. She said, you know, he's been doing pretty good. She's been cantering. We've had a lot of rain here the last couple of weeks, which, you know, rain in August, I'm not ever going to complain about it. But it is a little bit muddy out there right now, so she's mostly been riding him out on the dirt roads. She said she's been loping another horse beside him to kind of give him some confidence. So I'm feeling really good about where he's at. He'll be done this week. I'll probably go pick him up over the weekend, because they're going to leave, I think, next Monday to go up to the National Championship Chuck Wagon races in Clinton. Those are coming up. I am working on my fair entries, as I said, trying to figure out what all I'm going to take. Jacob is actually coming tomorrow afternoon. He got a job. He's working for an aluminum plant down in Benton, Arkansas, but he's off tomorrow. I saw him today, actually. He came into the department today. But I'm going to see him tomorrow, and he's going to come, and we're going to start making some carrying cages for the rabbits. I did lose one of my rabbits. I lost my English spot male, Mr. Spots, to a wasting disease that I think rabbits get sometimes when they get a little bit older. I'm going to start adding beet pulp, I think, to their food. I need to make sure that it's okay for them to have that. But one of the suggestions for that disease was to prevent them from getting it, because once you get it, there's not a lot you can do for them. But to prevent them from getting it up their fiber, and beet pulp is a good way to increase their fiber. But I need to make sure that the sugar content is not too much. Yeah, and so been getting some good rain. Last night, though, we had some very strong storms. We were just in the very south edge of them here at the farm. Town didn't even get any of them, but there were some very violent storms, lots of lightning, which I need to go up and check in on my donkeys. I tried to call them up a while ago, and they didn't come in, so I'm going to walk up in the pasture before it gets completely dark and try to find them. That's why I'm trying to kind of hurry this along. There were some tornado warnings called on those storms. Luckily not here, but some pretty violent storms passed through last night, kind of out of the blue. I mean, I kind of had a feeling something was going to happen because it was super humid yesterday, but they weren't really calling for them. We don't have a lot of rain predicted. We're back in that summertime pop-up storm pattern. But for the last 2 weeks, we've been getting pretty consistent, steady rain, which I'm grateful for in the sense that we do need the water. But my chicken pens are so muddy right now. I've got to get out there and muck those out. I think tomorrow while Jacob is here and he's working on those cages, I'm going to muck underneath the rabbit cages and muck out the chicken runs as best as I can. I've got to take my chickens this weekend and get them tested for pylori typhoid because you have to have a health paper to take them and exhibit them. So I've got to do that. This is no big deal. One of the 4-H groups is putting on a testing session down in Adkins on Saturday, so I'll run down there and get that done. Yeah, so that's pretty much it on the farm. I've got some plans for this winter. Talked to my neighbor about cutting some brush for me, so that'll be good. Want to try to clean up and get started on my kitchen this winter. I think I'm going to start painting my cabinets. I'd really like to get that tin that I've been hoarding out there on the driveway up on the walls. That's going to be a pretty major undertaking, and I'm not really sure the best way to cut it. I mean, I could cut it by hand with tin snips. Somebody said you could use a grinder. That sounds a little scary to me, so I may just cut it with tin snips. But anyway, that's something that I'll worry about as the winter comes, like an overwinter project, because I'm not going to be going to any conferences this winter. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at here on the farm. You know, like I said, if you want to see more of the day-to-day goings on the farm, check out my Vlogust videos. Because I've got lots of, I mean, I didn't realize how much I did during the day. So, go check those out. Gusty is home with an abscess in her foot right now. She is doing a lot better. I've been treating it with soaks every day. I've already done that for today, so they're up for the night. Little Miss had another episode with her founder last week, but she seems to have come out of it and is doing fine. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. So lots going on. I've got steers scheduled to go to the processor on September the 17th. So I will be taking my last ones for this year to the processor. My chicks are growing out really good. I've had pretty good luck with them so far. I think I am going to sell my pigeons to Mr. Duval. I'm going to get that one's head healed up, but it is doing better. I had one get pecked or hurt or something, and it was kind of flagging, but I got it up, and it seems to be doing better, so yay. Anyway, so that's kind of where we're at on the farm. I think we'll come back and finish up with a few final thoughts, and then I'm going to go hunt for my donkeys. Okay, I think my final thoughts today are going to be back on the program Star Trek. You know, I was listening to an interview with Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura, and she said the reason I stayed on the show after the first season was Dr. Martin Luther King said that is the only show we let our young children stay up and watch. And then she was saying, well, I feel like I need to be marching, because this was during the very major civil rights era movements that were going on. And she's like, I feel like I need to be marching with you guys. And he said, no, what you're doing is just as important. You're showing a strong, independent, African-American woman in a position of leadership. And my little kids get to see that. And that show, if you think about the messages of it, you know, I go back and I watch it now as an adult and in the times that we live in, and there's so many good messages. Yes, it's cheesy, and yes, my friend Jeremy, who's my former student, I was in his office today, and his notification on his computer is the old intercom sound, that whoo, and I was like, oh, I love that. And maybe that's why it's on my mind today, because it went off while I was standing there. But if you go back and you watch that show and you lay it on the template of where we are in the world right now, that show was about acceptance, discovery, understanding, trying to avoid violence whenever possible, and respecting all life forms. Wow, those are messages that are ageless, in my opinion. I love that show. Like I said, I think I'm going to watch it tonight. you know, I've been binging on the West Wing over and over and over and over, but I think I'm gonna watch Star Trek again tonight. Start watching it again tonight. I always had a crush on Scotty because he was the science man, you know, the engineer, and had that Scottish accent. But anyway, but the messages of that show about acceptance and understanding and tolerance and respecting discovery and life and all those things. Wow. I mean, those just hit home to me. And it was a show that was so important at the time, the tumultuous time that it was on, because it was civil rights. It was the Vietnam War. It was, you know, we were moving into the 70s with the first Middle East sort of conflicts and things like that. And then for a lot of years, its messages kind of got drowned out by the excesses that we, you know, as a people, not as a country, but in the world, when in these excesses of the 80s, where it was shows like Dynasty and all that. But now I find that we're kind of coming back around to the messages of Star Trek. And so I wasn't going to do anything else to my solar system blanket, and I thought, you know, I want to put a Starship Enterprise on there, because to me personally, it means a lot. That is a show that got me fascinated with astronomy, definitely. And as an adult, it has meant a lot to me to go back and rewatch those shows with adult eyes and listen to the words and the messages that were there. Yes, you know, it's cheesy, and yes, there are some terribly sexist things on there, you know, the short skirts and the objectification that Captain Kirk has for women, and then there's the Kurt Jitsu move, you know, that everybody knows. But wow, I mean, that show to me had such a profound impact on me then, and it still is now. So I think finding those messages, finding those positive pop culture messages are my thought for today. We see so many negative pop culture messages, it seems, lately. So finding those positive messages, I think, is going to be my watchword for the next little while. So anyway, before it gets super dark, I'm going to go hunt my donkeys up. So until we visit again, y'all be good to each other and take care of each other. And what, Willie? Whoop, get up here where you can tell them. Peace out, y'all. Bye.